This video would not be possible without the support of my patrons over on Patreon. Be sure to check out the Patreon in the description down below, where you can check out a growing backlog of exclusive videos just for patrons. It is about 27 long now, approaching 30. We are going to keep adding to that as well, while continuing to produce content on this channel and the Let's Play channel for everybody. We hope you check that out. And let's get right into it. But one more thing. This was actually recorded via Skype recorder. And now, as a lot of you know, the quality on that is not the absolute best. This was recorded on the end of Slcmof. Kobe, he is fantastic. I made this video with him, but he's going to sound a lot better than I do in it. Please bear with it. I think we go through a lot of really fun stuff together, and I'll look for future better alternatives to recording in the future that actually help the audio quality sound even better. So without further ado, appreciate you sticking around. Let's hop right into it. Hey everybody, how's it going? Jay here again, as always. Who were you expecting? I am joined today by Kobe Slcmof. Some of you are going to know him as a massive name in the YouTuber community, especially when it comes to comics, Batman Arkham. Thank you so much for being here today. We are taking a look at the 5 things that Arkham didn't do that Gotham Knights really should. And before we get started, I do want to say that everybody should be checking out your channel, man, because it is a source of a lot of great news, lists, all kinds of stuff, especially when it relates to this topic.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for having me on. And as many of you know, I've co-founded an organization called the Gotham Knights with Salvage and many others. And a couple months ago, we were looking for a new member to join, and we researched a bunch of different candidates, and we came across your channel. We're just like, yeah, we definitely have to get this guy. So you make great videos, and keep up the good work, man.
The first thing that we think this game needs to do that Arkham never did really is include civilians.
And the thing about the civilians too is that when you watch the Gotham Knights gameplay, I kind of wonder the extent to which civilians are involved. Now, one thing that we can't really tell is because in the gameplay that we saw, there is Mr. Freeze, and there's this apocalyptic threat that he's providing. But I'm curious to know how many civilians are there really? How populated is the world? Now, the game takes place at night, and it takes place over multiple nights. And my hope is that it feels like a really lived-in, fleshed-out Gotham, as we mentioned. Now, to be fair, they can't possibly downgrade from any of the previous Arkham games where there are no civilians at all. So, and even just having civilians and having civilian cars driving when you see that first gameplay was already a gigantic upgrade. So I'm not going to be one to nitpick about it, but that's just one thing to note. Is I'm very curious to know, how dynamic is the open world going to be,
Yeah, because you're right. You cannot downgrade any more than having nothing. Because I mean, in Arkham Asylum, it makes sense. You're on Arkham Island, nobody's there. The only civilians would be the inmates, right? Fine, that works. You get to city. Okay, we're in an enclosed area. There would be a few political prisoners along with the inmates. That's it again. Okay, fair enough. We've come up with 2 excuses for why there's nobody there. Then you get to Origins. It's like, oh, but it's Christmas and it's cold out. No one's here. You're like, okay, I can kind of buy that. And then it hits night, and it's just like, by the way, every single person got out of here. And you're like, everybody?
They all 6 billion, or not billion, million people that would live in Gotham. That makes no sense.
Including the homeless population. No one's there.
Yeah, I think about in LA, because I live in LA, of just if there was some mass threat of evacuation, there would still be millions of people left over. It would just be the rich people that leave. It's just what is going on? How does that even work? They show everybody loading up into buses. Remember at the beginning of the game, they all load into school buses? How many fucking school buses do you have?
Oh, millions. They have millions of school buses. Yeah, that's something that they've really got to do, because it was pretty silly. And I think that we're already on the right track for that.
There's no way you can downgrade, and I'm not going to nitpick and be like, oh, there's not enough civilians. We need even more. We need stadiums full of civilians.
Dude, if we just see one, we've gone up 100% if we just see one guy.
One singular civilian. Oh my god, I love it.
Oh my gosh. Dude, the second one definitely that you and I were talking about is also focusing on different characters. At first, this is something that I actually changed up this point a little bit, because you have a new video out talking about this. And I'm sure at some point I'll take a look myself at more villains that I want to see. But they really do need to focus on more than one villain, because yes, we know that the Court of Owls is a big deal here, right? But it can't really just be that every single plot thread comes back to them with nothing going anywhere else. That did happen a lot with Joker. As much as we love him, you can't really just do that indefinitely without cheapening every secondary villain in your game.
Yeah, unfortunately, my video on that topic had some like bogus copyright claim on it because I was using somebody else's video as like background footage, even though it was my content. Anyway, that's all bogus. But anyway, going back to the point of the Joker in Arkham in particular, is that you're right that every plot in the Batman Arkham games reverts back to the Joker. And even Arkham City, even Arkham Knight, when you're like, oh, the Joker's dead, and they reassure you over and over again, and we're noticing a similar pattern here in this game, just saying, where they're like, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. We start open the game, we torch him on fire, and they just and that's really where the trepidation comes in. Not to sidebar too much, but when they're telling us over and over again, Batman's dead, Batman's dead, Batman's dead, and then we think back to like, oh yeah, that's a perfect example. In Batman Arkham Knight, they kept saying that over and over again, and the reason they told us that repeatedly was not because the Joker was not in the game, it was to basically level our expectations so that it was a surprise. And in the event of this game as well, I think that the Court of Owls provides a phenomenal opportunity. It's a total shift because this will be the first time we've actually had an organization of villains that we're fighting against. Because in Arkham Origins, it's this amalgamation of henchmen who are trying to get the $50 million to kill Batman. In Arkham Knight, the game is pitched that all of the villains are working together, and they have this meeting before the game and before the events of the main story, and then they take down Batman together. That's not at all how the story actually sort of fleshed out, but that was their
that way at all.
I know, but that was their pitch. That was the whole idea of it, right?
Yeah.
So in this game with the Court of Owls, the great advantage of is it's such an complex and rich organization that is a rather limited history in the comics. They can do quite a bit with it, but they also can, have talent and focus on other key members of the Court of Owls, and the possibilities there are endless. So I'm very excited to see how the Court of Owls will shake up the typical Joker Arkham stuff. The Joker, as I mentioned before, adds such a fantastic contrast to the Court of Owls because they're polar opposites. The Joker is all about chaos and anarchy, and the Court of Owls is about order. And as a result of that, they provide a great contrast to one another, and I'd like to see them. I do want to see Joker in the game. I've ran polls on my channel in the past, and most people also agree that they do want to see Joker in the game, despite the many of comments that will be in this video that we don't want Joker, and that's totally fine, and I totally respect that opinion. But you have to understand that as a community, the general consensus is, yes, we don't want the Joker to be the main villain, as we're kind of noting here, but that it would be interesting to have him involved in some way. And albeit I am slightly skeptical the extent to which you can include the Joker as a side villain, although it's been done in the past, and it certainly can be done. But it's been done poorly as well with Suicide Squad and in other cases.
Yeah, it's a very hard thing to do. I think some of the better examples of that are something like even Mask of the Phantasm was able to do it very well.
That's a great point.
But a lot of other things, like you said, Suicide Squad, it's hard because he either steals the show or it's so bad it crashes and burns. You got to have that middle ground.
Literally like his helicopter did. Ba-doom.
Yeah. Pretty much, but he's
joke.
fine.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah, you're right. He lived. I don't know how, but he did.
You could ask them any question about Suicide Squad, and the answer would just be, what movie? So the third one that we have is more iconic buildings being playable. You mentioned specifically Wayne Manor. I think that is a massive one. That's probably the biggest one. We are going to have the Belfry. It looks like that's going to be, different than the cave. It's kind of hard though too, because it seems like Wayne Manor being blown up is the first thing from what I'm getting is that explosion. So I don't know how they do it, but at the same time, that's something everybody's wanted. They haven't specifically said it's Wayne Manor, but it seems like that's what it's going to be. So I'm not sure either way on that.
You're saying that Batman dies when Wayne Manor blows up.
Yeah, but so it's hard because if they do go that direction, which it's kind of looking like they're going to for me, that further ties it to something like Arkham Knight, which they don't want it tied to because this is supposed to be a separate continuity, which then makes me think even more that this game was going to be originally a follow-up to that. But at the same time, The Dark Knight Returns, the whole protocol of blowing up Wayne Manor and faking his own death really kind of became popularized from that comic. So maybe they're going off that. It's just if they do go off Arkham Knight, or off the Wayne Manor, people are going to think of that. Then we can't go there. There's a lot of different sideline conversations I'm starting there. Sorry, but it's
okay. Hear
weird.
me out. So the thing with the Wayne Manor is, I've said this before, and that the Wayne Manor should be fully free roamable. So everyone's like, but why? There's like 19 bathrooms in it. Like, what's the point? There's no benefit of free roaming. And I'm like, but you can't really feel like Batman unless you're just like walking around in Wayne Manor and just like, oh, you're on the east side of it. It takes like an hour. It should take like an hour to free roam from one side to the other, and you're just like walking in your bathrobe as Bruce Wayne. That's really what we want to see in this game. Now, Batman's dead, so we can't do that. But the only way it would make sense to not have the Batcave is if Wayne Manor blows up. I mean, that has to be how the game starts. And then that makes it even weirder that it wouldn't be related to Arkham, because it's like, not only is the same concept of Batman dying at the end or when this game takes place, it literally is the exact same ending with the Wayne Manor exploding, like exactly page for page how they did in the Nightfall Protocol. But I imagine they're going to make some distinctions, although I did get a lot of texts from friends who aren't super into the stuff of just like, what? This isn't Arkham? Like, but it ends exactly, like, it takes up exactly where Arkham Knight ends off. This is so weird. So I had to explain that to a lot of people, and even I don't fully understand it, to be honest with you. But the thing about Wayne Manor is that it's just, it's all about creating that immersive experience, right? And I think that it being able to free roam around Wayne Manor and walk around the Batcave, I thought that Arkham Origins did okay with letting you walk around the but it's so limited. Like, there's not even that much surface area that you can free roam around. I'm involving like, you can, almost like in the Arkham VR DLC, where it's like you can actually like take the elevator down to the Batcave and walk around and that type of thing. So that's kind of what I had in mind. Now the Wayne Manor probably exploded, which means we'll have the Belfry, but same thing there. Hopefully the Belfry will be playable in the sense that we can free roam and walk around and explore certain things, and it's not just like this tiny room, which it probably will be. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and to your point, I do think that you need a little more than the Belfry in terms of the characterization. So this is not COD, but what this reminds me of a little bit is if you try and I know you've played Call of Duty in the past, something like Black Ops 3, when you try and create one humanizing space, but every other space in the game is foreign to it, it just comes off weird. So an example of that is they have your base, your home base. I forget what they call it, your HQ in Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and you are there and you walk around, you talk to people, whatever. They're supposedly doing something like that again in Call of Duty. My issue with what they've said about the Belfry is it almost seems like that's going to be the only place where that happens in this game, of these, humanizing moments between characters and free roaming around in a building out of costume. I think that your idea really allows you to go in more directions with that, whether it's Wayne Manor or, Wayne Enterprises, anything like that. I think that the more places you have like that, the more you're able to do that fleshed out character writing.
Right, and the real question is this game going to address some of the main concerns we've had in the Batman Arkham games? Because the Batman Arkham games are fantastic action RPG games where you're going from place to place to place. It's fast-paced, action-packed, and it's a fun story that you can play through in 6 hours and not even realize 6 hours has passed. But I think for this game, what I and many others want is a little bit more expanded story that maybe resembles something like Spider-Man PS4, where you have more moments like at Feast with Aunt May and those great character moments. And, basically making a Batman the Animated Series episode and sort of converting that a season of Batman the Animated Series into a video game where there are those character moments where, like, just Nightwing and Batgirl are going on dates and doing things like that. A lot of our favorite character moments between these characters will maybe be able to happen there, maybe not. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I'm not convinced necessarily that there won't be any character moments outside of the Belfry, but it's an important question. We'll have to wait and see more if that's the case.
Absolutely. Well, and that almost completely covers our number 4 as well, because we kind of transitioned seamlessly into that we do want to see those characterization in interpersonal moments. Now, what I do want to see is it does seem like, this is me speculating, it does seem like eventually we will see more characters and stuff like that, because there have been some comments I've seen on Twitter and other places about how many characters there would be at launch. So I don't know if they actually want to transition in more characters, but I think that the more you put in there, the more focus there's going to be from people who actually care about these characters about, are there these interpersonal moments like Dick Grayson and Barb? Are they actually talking to each other in a way that, they've had some kind of romantic past or are having that now? How does that work? Damian Wayne and Nightwing, the older surrogate brother to the younger, more brutal, angry little brother who is adopted into the family. How do those two get along if you bring in Damian Wayne or someone like that? Or Tim Drake, who's very respectful of all these characters. How will he react to these people? Jason Todd, who's angry all the time. Each of these characters in this world and who you bring in. I mean, if you don't bring in Damien or, Stephanie or anyone like that, you don't have to worry about them, but you still have the main four.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to grasp about, like, how you can play through the game from beginning to end with Batgirl, and you can do the same thing with Nightwing and with Red Hood, and you don't need to play with other people, and it makes it so that there's, like, so many different branching paths for the main story of the game that I'm wondering if there are going to be enough of those character moments, right? Because it's like, if I can play through the entire story by myself and then do the same thing again co-op, it's like the dialogue throughout each of those playthroughs should be completely different if you're playing with somebody else. But is it just going to be that the dialogue is just slightly amended and there's like a few extra quips from Red Hood if you play, let's say I'm playing as Batgirl with Red Hood, and there's just a lot of questions to be answered there of, are there going to be those character moments that we want to see? If not, yeah, it's just going to resemble a little bit more of a like a Batman Arkham style experience where it's just action, go, 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 go. But I think what I would like to see personally is something more aligned with Spider-Man PS4, where you do have, that relationship between MJ and Peter that ends. The end of the game, the big payoff at the end of Spider-Man PS4 is actually that kiss between MJ and Spider-Man. But let's say the gameplay is like 7 out of 10. It's solid. But the story, like exactly those character moments we're talking about, it feels like we are playing through an episode of the animated series. We're playing through like a whole arc of the animated series. It's just fantastic storytelling, and those character moments are there. And if that's the case, then we'll be like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, the gameplay's okay, but I guess it just depends. I mean, my friend Dustin, who's on the Anonymous Throwdown podcast, he's like, games are all about gameplay. And for me, I just don't view it that way. But everybody's different. And, I think we have the Batman Arkham games. Batman Arkham Knight, say what you will about it, it has perfect gameplay. It is one of the best games ever made for gameplay. In my honest opinion, I genuinely believe that. Rocksteady is so good at that. And W Montreal, the thing is that you don't want to try to beat Rocksteady and their gameplay because it's almost impossible to do because they are that good. So then the question is, how do you build strengths in other areas? Well, Batman Arkham Knight had this huge weakness with the story. So that's where W Montreal can fill in and basically compensate for their, quote, weaknesses. I wouldn't say it's a weakness, it's just a disadvantage relative to other game studios because the gameplay is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I can tell you that for 100% just by seeing the first gameplay that some people are not going to like it, but if the story is good enough, it'll get people through.
And we do have our final one as well here. This was one that you came up with, so I think I'll probably let you roll with it for the most part and throw in a couple things on myself, but that's actually lengthy, deep side missions, because you even pointed out here that something like Hush or Arkham Knight fetch side missions are not really going to cut it in terms of what probably we are going to want or what the community is going to want. I know that was a huge complaint with the Arkham games, actually, was the side missions are fun, but they die out very quickly compared to the main story, and then there's really nothing left to do except collect Riddler trophies.
Yeah, well, my idea for this is basically side missions where you can play through a graphic novel length experience. So I put 5 hours here for the Long Halloween. That's a little long of a side mission, but 2 hours. So it's something that it could pass as like a story DLC that they would sell for $5 to $10. But for instance, let's think of the Hush side mission in Arkham City. The payoff is pretty cool, but there's not a lot of steps going there. And it's the same thing with the Zaz side mission and other things like that. Like, it's very laborious and it's not that interesting. My imagination and what I go to is the idea of like playing through the Long Halloween as a side mission, this murder mystery that you're unraveling, and it's like a 2 to 3 hour total aside from the main story, and it's just like a murder mystery type of mini game almost experience where whatever, it's like you're taking down Hush and or whoever, it's a mystery person, it's Calendar Man, I don't care, but it's just some mystery where you're playing through or some other like 2 hour story DLC where you're unraveling something. I think that would be interesting because, as I mentioned, the Hush DLC in Arkham City was not that good. The payoff in Arkham Knight was not that good. The side mission in Arkham City. And I think that the side missions can really be built upon, and also getting rid of those repetitive combat type of stuff that they had with like the militia outposts. I guess they're okay. They're not the worst thing in the world if you really need a pad for length, but I felt that in Arkham Knight, there wasn't quite enough of those story-based missions, like the Professor Pig one, for instance, that I thought was really good. And there was a lot of, like, take out militia outposts, take out these mines in the ground, and it's just like, oh my god. And after you take out, like,
your firefighter.
Yeah, and it's like, after you take out your 70th mine in the ground, it's like, why am I even taking out these mines? There aren't even civilians in this city. What the fuck is the point of the... sorry, I said the F word. What is the point of this? Okay. It's like, I don't know.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that That's something Arkham did suffer from a lot. I mean, it had to improve over time. In the first, in Asylum, there was nothing. And then in City, you started seeing these side missions, same with Origins and Night, but they never really hit the potential of what I think we think they could be, is definitely what we're getting at here. And we want to see that in Gotham Knights. I mean, I think that's pretty much all there is to say about it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, hey, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you very much for coming on and helping me with this list. I do encourage everybody to actually check out your channel, which is Slcmof, Slcmof, which will be linked in my description down below. It'll be the first link right up there in the description. I encourage people to check out you, Kobe, because you actually have a lot of great content, especially when it comes to Batman and even other stuff going on in the comic book realm in terms of video games and stuff like that. I mean, I've seen you streaming lately, playing through Avengers, stuff like that. You've got a ton of great stuff over on your channel. And if you are not following his channel, you're missing out. So I do encourage you to check that out. Be sure to let me know what you think in the description, in the actual comments down below. I do that a lot for some reason. Let me know if you enjoyed this collab, what you'd want to see from us in the future, and what you would want to see in Gotham Knights that you didn't see in Arkham. We hope that you have a fantastic day, and as always, stay shui.
Have a good one.